Hello my kings, queens, and fellow non-binary leaders, and welcome back to Nei Nakama. Today we'll have a short little one-shot that's called Feverish Night Scare. It's a BokuAkaKuroKen Parents AU and also Omegaverse AU, and kind of a prequel to the Out of Jail card. However, you don't have to watch that beforehand or anything like that. And yeah, my voice is a bit rough today, so let's hope that it lives through this recording. A little trigger warning for seizures, though nothing serious. And now let's get to it. Bokuto grumbled something under his breath, only half awake as the blanket next to him lifted. His Omega skillfully removed himself from the Alpha's embrace and was about to sneak out of the room when the ace caught his wrist. Where are you going? His words were slurred. He was drooling on his pillow and his attempt to open his eyes was short-lived. Akaashi sighed and loosened his grip with ease before placing Bokuto's hand gently onto the comforter again. Just checking on Megumi one more time. Keiji, let them sleep. They needed to get better. The oldest was sick, with a cold most likely. They had been sniffling all day and developed a mild fever in the evening, yet Akaashi couldn't help but fuss over them. Megumi was small, smaller than most kids their age. They had been born too early and got sick easily. Despite it being far from the first time, Akaashi couldn't help but fret. He stole himself away quietly despite his Alpha's weak protest, glad that Kemma and Tetsu hadn't woken up as well to back him up. At the door to Megumi's room, he paused. The pup's still very much milky, soft scent that had just started developing a note of Mirabelle plums was soured by the sickness and distress. He opened the door carefully to reveal the softly lit room, with a soft pink and yellow nightlight on Izumi's side and a purple one for Megumi. Izumi, much like her father, was sound asleep and sprawled out over her nest to the point the blanket failed to cover her and a few pillows and plushies had fallen down. She was always a restless child, even in her sleep. A soft smile tugged on Akaashi's lips as he approached her bed to tuck her in once more, and placed her favorite plushie back next to her head. She always cried when she deemed it gone in the morning. He placed a soft kiss on her forehead before turning to Megumi. Megumi had barely moved at all. They weren't as restless as their sister usually, but this time their position had barely changed. Even in their sleep, their brows remained slightly furrowed in discomfort, and their little hands balled around the crow plushie their godfather had given them. Honey. He carefully brushed a few sweat-drenched strands of hair from their face. Their forehead was hot to the touch. A small whimper escaped the pup's throat, and Akaashi wanted nothing more than to wrap them in his arms and take the pain away if he could. He began humming a lullaby and rested his head by their bedside. Suddenly, the golden eyes, so much like Kemma's, blinked awake, and their mouth pulled into a frown. Akaashi recognized it as a wail building in their chest. Immediately, he rushed to soothe them. Hey, darling, I'm here. Papa's here. Everything's alright. He pulled the child into his arms carefully as sobs began shaking their small body. The Omega shushed them gently, hoping not to wake up Izumi as well, when suddenly the distress in Megumi's sense spiked and their breaths became even more ragged. Megumi? Can you look at me, honey? But they didn't react. A last wail escaped them when suddenly their whole body tensed up. Their head lolled back as they started convulsing in his arms, eyes fluttering as though they were losing consciousness. Megumi? Akaashi tensed up, losing control of his own scent as his pup remained unresponsive. Foam bubbled at the edge of their mouth and the spasms wouldn't stop shaking them. Megumi? Please, look at me. Honey, look at me. He was panicking, pressing his pup tighter to his chest in fear, trying to stabilize their head with his hands. Everything he read in preparation of becoming a parent was suddenly gone. His mind was blank as he desperately buried his hand in the pup's black hair and breathed in their scent, heavily saturated with distress. Megumi. Lay them down. Bokuto turned over, unsettled, pulling Akaashi's pillow closer to cling to the lingering scent of their omega. He sighed as sleep didn't return to him. Usually, he wasn't easily startled awake, but Akaashi's anxiety was always something the alpha was sensitive towards. He could still feel it lingering through their mate bond. Kuro next to him also seemed to grow more restless in his sleep, and the alpha was quick to reach out and send him to hopefully alleviate it. No reason for both of them to be sleep-deprived tomorrow with 2 toddlers. Suddenly, their omega's anxiety spiked in a desperate cry for help. Immediately, he was wide awake. Kenma and Kuro's arms jumped up so quickly he almost fainted, his eyes blown wide in sudden panic, though he was clearly not awake yet. Kuro instinctively pulled him protectively close, was searching for the threat. Bokuto was already at the bedroom door when the scent hit him. Stay here, I'll check. His heart was beating rapidly in his throat, teeth gritted. The distress of his omega mixing with the fearful scent of his pup created a potent draw on his instincts. He never felt as scared to open a door and see what's behind as in the moment he reached the children's room. Inside, he found Keiji, clinging to the pup who was still convulsing in his arms in what Bokuto first assumed to be sobs but soon identified as a seizure. Lay them down. Akaashi seemed to have barely registered his entrance and actually growled at him in warning as he tried to take the pup from his arms. His teal-colored eyes fixated him with a threat woven into his gaze for the blink of an eye. Bokuto gulped. Akaashi was terrifying when angry. Yet, after a few seconds, the omega caught himself as though only now recognizing him. He flinched back at his own reaction and slowly allowed Bokuto access to their pup, though still reached after them as the alpha gently arranged them on the rug beside the bed. He put them into the recovery position, trying hard to steal his focus and not let it be taken by Akaashi's shaking or Megumi's choked breathing. For how long have they been like this? Keiji! The omega startled as if struggling to snap out of it and process the question. Now that his protective aggression faded, he looked at Bokuto with wide, pleading eyes. A minute or 2, I think. Bokuto nodded briskly as he checked that there was nothing around Megumi they could hit themselves on. A minute or 2 was okay. That wasn't too bad, as long as it ended soon. What do we do? Akaashi was so disheveled and grasping for help. Bokuto gently reached out to take his hand and squeezed it in reassurance, letting out calming pheromones to help his omega and the pup when they came back to. We'll let it run its course until the seizure is over. What? But... It's okay. It's likely just a febrile seizure due to the fever. If it's short, it'll be nothing serious. The raven didn't look convinced, but he nodded slowly, still trembling slightly. He would have known this under normal circumstances, but Bokuto could very well sympathize with this taking him off guard. Seeing his pup helpless like this broke his heart. It's not hurting them. They likely won't even remember the details. He uttered it soothingly, though Keiji only whimpered in response. The alpha let out a breath of relief as soon as the spasms let up and Megumi's breathing normalized. They blinked dazed as they came to. Can you get them a new set of pajamas? He asked Akaashi gently as he noticed how drenched they were with sweat and the little lake forming as they had wet themselves during the seizure. Confused, Megumi tried to sit up, tears forming rapidly in their eyes as they took in the situation and failed to understand it. Hey, baby, shh, it's alright. Everything is alright now. Bokuto took them into his arms as they sobbed and cried, hiding against him and clinging to his shirt desperately. He heard a gasp behind them and found Akaashi, a fresh pajama in hand, kneeling down beside Izumi. The little girl watched them wide-eyed, with tears streaming down her cheeks. As Akaashi reached her, she cried out and reached for her sibling, visibly scared. She must have seen the whole thing and was worried now. The ace thought to himself while rocking Megumi to soothe them. They might not remember come the next morning, but he was sure Izumi would. Megumi. Izumi hiccuped miserably while calling out for her sibling and reaching over Akaashi's shoulder, trying to escape his grip. Megumi didn't respond, just hit further. They didn't like the attention. Here, let me. Kenma came in and gently took Izumi from Akaashi's arms. The other Omega didn't protest this time and let himself sink back as Kuro joined them as well and took the pajamas to bring to Bokuto. Hey kitten, how are you feeling? Megumi didn't respond verbally but tapped Bokuto twice and the elf understood. He adjusted them gently as their sobs subsided to sniffles. They're feeling meh. Not good, not bad anymore. Right, darling? They gave a small nod but flinched away as Izumi wailed while being carried out the room, teaching the little girl that her siblings sometimes needed more space than others proved to be a challenge, especially when she was worried about them. Alright, that's good. Do you feel ready to change into new clothes? They have the crows on them you like so much. The edges of Kuro's lips twitched and the hint of the betrayed smile that always resurfaced when it came to that little inside joke that Hinata had successfully indoctrinated them to prefer Karasuno rather than Nekoma. Megumi risked a glance but shook their head, clinging to Bokuto more tightly. That's okay, darling. Take your time. He held them up to his chest tightly while rocking them back and forth and talking about whatever he could think of that he saw that day that Megumi might find interesting. Their gaze turned distant, never meeting his, but he knew they were listening. It was soothing them. Behind them, Kenma re-entered, and from below, Bokuto could hear Izumi throwing a tantrum. She was still learning to regulate herself, and being seemingly rejected always hit her hardest. Can you help me with Izumi? It's getting a bit too much for me right now. Akaashi immediately nodded, an apology already on his lips, but Kenma quickly denied it, and the two Omegas left again, trying to help Izumi through it. Bokuto knew she was scared and worried, and didn't understand why she couldn't be with Megumi right now. It must be frustrating for her. He sighed, but didn't let up describing the stray cat he saw that morning in detail to his little pup. The minutes passed by. He was getting too warm with the feverish child in his arms, but powered through. Kuro had taken over talking and put the clothes aside for now, while the noise downstairs calmed until there was no more screaming from Izumi. Megumi didn't show any signs of another seizure, but their clothes were getting clammy and they started shivering. After half an hour, Bokuto asked again for them to change and they nodded slowly. Okay, arms up and on 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Kuro swiftly pulled the drenched shirt over Megumi's head while Bokuto grasped their hands again immediately after, providing a pressure for the pup to focus on, and showered them in praise as they took deep breaths to calm down. They closed their eyes in discomfort. Good job! The worst part is over. We're almost done. Papa Keiji got you your crow jumper so you don't need to pull anything over your head again. They nodded in understanding. It took a few more minutes before they could continue, almost 20 in total, until they were finally dressed in fresh clothes and sank exhausted into Kuro's arms. Changing was always a challenge for them. Good job, baby. You did so well. Let's get you settled. Oh. They clung to Kuro's shirt, and the alphas exchanged a tired glance of loving exasperation. I guess it's best to let them stay with us tonight, in case they have another seizure. Kuro nodded and swiftly hoisted their pup into his arms. Bokuto quickly grabbed the crow plushie before Megumi could miss it and followed them into the nest. In the bedroom, they already found Kenma and Keiji, with Izumi laying asleep in the raven's arms, seemingly having tired herself out. Kenma sighed but smiled and took Megumi from Koro's arms without problems, handing them the plushie Bokuto offered. Hey love, are you feeling better? Megumi nodded tiredly and curled up in the Omega's arms. Koro could about melt at the side, and one by one they got all settled in the nest with their pups in their midst. It was too warm, and a little crowded, even for a big nest that was meant to hold at least 4 people. He was sure he'd get kicked by Izumi at least once, and chances were at least one of them would get sick too, but as the distress faded in the air, it was all worth it. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I really hope you enjoyed this part, and yeah, let me know what you think of these kind of Omegaverse one-shots and if I should make more of them. Ironically, because I mean, some of you might have seen it already in the community post that there are a few videos that I plan about like seizures because it was requested. Ironically, I finished this just before reading this request. Like, I think the request is a little bit older, but I haven't checked the forum in a while because I had a lot going on. And I wrote this and I finished this just because before seeing this request. I found that coincidence hilarious. And yeah, special thanks to my Nickers. They get all my videos early and they decided that this one would be next. So yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, check out the join button under this video. I appreciate every single one of you who also just watches these videos. I just learned that I didn't qualify for the scholarship for next semester, but it's okay. Still, if you find this is a good time to rewatch the Fake It Till You Make It Supercut, I would appreciate you so much. Oh, look at these other content. Have a great day. I love you guys.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.